Thank you all for joining in today. And today is our episode number 4. This is SCCM free SCCM training provided by How to Manage Devices community. And thank you all for joining in again. Right? If you are not speaking, can you please go on mute? That would be helpful. Okay. So just to give you a recap, right? So we have built Azure Lab yesterday and last week, right? And we built SCCM servers in the lab. We built a resource group first, then we built a virtual network, then we build a subnet within Azure, right? And then build a domain server and SQL SCCM, right? Where we stopped yesterday, that is where we started the installation of the SCCM server, and then we stopped, right? So I left that at the same place, so I'm going to connect to the same server, right? Let me connect to that. Give me a sec. Okay, I have a connectivity to that server. Let me share that screen. Hope you are able to see the screen, right? There's an architecture diagram in the screen, right?
Yes, Anu, we can see.
Okay, so yesterday what we did is we started the installation of SCCM and we left as it is, right? So this was a state yesterday when we left the meeting, right? So when we stopped recording and when we entered the meeting yesterday, right? So today what we can see is the installation got completed, the SCCM installation got completed, and evaluation, everything. You can check all the steps over here, right? And you can confirm whether there is any error or warning or anything else, right? So everything is almost green, right? So creating program group configuration manager console installed, configuration data replication service started, boot image package created, installing policy providers, right? Everything is kind of right, gotten successfully, right? And you can confirm this from the logs as well, right? In the logs you can see like the completed the configuration manager server setup, right? So that is good news for us, and you can ignore these errors because probably that is something else which is it is kind of trying to delete a particular file or something, right? And it is giving that error, it is getting that error, so that we can ignore, right? So don't worry much about red marks and what you call warnings, right, over here. So if you want to know more about what has happened in the background during the installation, first thing you need to do is basically go through this stuff, right? So let me walk through these steps, right? First it started evaluating the setup environment, then evaluating the installation of the configuration manager dependencies, right? And then SQL server certificate it looked into. The main part is basically it started from here, right? SQL, setting up SQL server database, right? We have yesterday we have seen the database already created when before we stop the recording and meeting, right? So this is the main part, and normally I have seen like this is the time taking step. This step could take more than to 30 minutes or sometimes, right, more than that, right? So after that, it started copying the files and installing the SMS provider, installing the registry. So you can look into all these things to understand what happened in the background, right? monitoring the replication initialization, and all the installing site components. All those things happens automatically, and all these things you can watch, or you can notify, you get notified in the log file. So where is this log file, right? This log file is configMgr setup log file. This is in the C drive, right? If you go to C drive, even though we installing SCCM in F drive, we can get all these log files, setup related log files in the C drive, right? You can see a bunch of log files over here. This is admin's UI setup. This is console installation setup and prerequisite setup over here, right? Prerequisite file, log file over here. If you open up, you can see like what are the things, prerequisite checks it had done, and kind of stuff like that, right? So when you troubleshoot, when you have a problem with prerequisite failure or something, probably this is a log which you need to look into, right? Okay, so the setup file is there, and setup wizard, which we had gone through, so that is also there, right? All these details are already there. So this is an interesting, this is an interesting log file where you will find the default accounts, right, which will provide the service accounts kind of scenario details. You can get it over here, right? So this is also some useful kind of log file when we go through some troubleshooting stuff and kind of stuff like that, right? Okay, so setup is the main file over here. So these files are only used at the time of, these log files are only used at the time of upgrade, right? When you upgrade a windows SCCM 1910 to um, 2002, then probably this is a file again used, right? During the setup, this will be used again, right? Configuration manager setup and CM update log, all those things will be used, right? So the setup is completed now, and you can search the database entries over here. So if the file is not overwritten, you would be able to see a lot of SQL commands. It checked lot of SQL commands, right? It ran lot of SQL commands over here, right? See, not found, and it then creating, and a lot of SQL activity over here. So that is part of the SQL database creation. See, it's executing the SQL server scripts over here, right? Proxy traffic report, pull DP, map, right? All these tables and everything is kind of getting created during this process, right? So that is why I said like database creation, and that particular task is the most time taking task in SCCM installation. And it depends how much time it is going to take, basically on your um, server specifics, right? The server hardware and the server performance, right? Okay, so that is very useful, and this is very useful kind of log file if you want to troubleshoot. And if you go back into the services, right? Services, you can see the now you can see the services related to SCCM or configuration manager, right? I don't know why it's taking so much of time to come up with services. Okay, maybe I need to put MSC dot MSC. Okay, so that was the trick. That is not good, right? Services is not working. Services dot MSC is working. So let me see configuration manager, right? Configuration manager update. This should be stopped now. Otherwise, probably there is some update going on. Otherwise, if you can go and search for some SMS related, right? So if you check with configuration manager, only the new service will be available in that name, right? But all the other services are same, like the previous name, with this previous name, like SCC SMS SMS is the first version of previous version of configuration manager, right? SCCM, right? That is why it shows in the name of that, right? SMS executive, SMS site backup. That will be kind of not running stopped in. It will be in a stopped state, right? And as a site component manager, SQL backup, and site W sorry VSS writer. So these are the four logs which we need to kind of look into when you have a problem with SCM something. These are the logs which we look into and check whether these logs are these services are running or not. I don't know why I keep telling log, right? So these are the services which we need to look into, right, as part of the installation and as part of the troubleshooting of SCCM server, um, server monitoring and troubleshooting. Okay, so let me close this down, right? And the initial service which we have seen is that is for the update, right? Servicing in an update. So for example, if you want to upgrade from 1910 to 2002 version of SCCM, that is a service. It handles that kind of upgrade or update process, right? In console update process, right? So let's close this. And now if you go to program files in C drive, probably you won't be able to see anything like related to SCCM, because right, because we installed this in F drive, right? So let's go to F drive and let's see the structure of the folders and all, right? So this is automatically created. This is the content library. So that is automatically created. Even though we didn't create any DP role, the content library folder is created. Folder structure is created. Please note that, right? So it will be automatically created, right? Even though we have not enabled DP, we have not enabled the site system role DP, right? So that is one point to be noted. And yes, the DP share is already created, right? SMS pkg, I don't know how many of you know, this is the temporary location where the packages will be stored before distributing it to the remote remote distribution points, right? Earlier versions there will be always like pck files sitting over here. Pck files are kind of a compressed files for the package, each package, right? Now with CB versions, right? Latest CB versions, it is a temporary location. After the distribution, it normally deletes the PCK file, if I understand correctly, right? Okay. So signature folder. So these are the folder structure which we need to look into, right? So signature folder, you can see the default packages, package IDs which got created for. So these are the 5 default packages, out of box packages. So one of them is client package and the other one is client update package, and one would be USMT or something. We will see, we will get into the details of the packages, right? So this is just to confirm the folder structure got created, right? So these are the checks you need to kind of go through and check whether the verification kind of stuff, right? To complete to confirm the installation got completed successfully, right? So program files is the place where you will find the configuration manager or SCCM files, right? Over here you will get all the details, all the files, everything, right? So I mentioned first thing, tools. If you go to tools, you would be able to see CM trace over here, right? You don't need installation media to get a CM trace copy, and it is there in the server program files folder also, right? Where your primary server is installed, and it will be there in the client system, I think CCM folder or system 32 folder, right? I forgot where it was. It is exactly, right? And this is a folder for our SQL database, right? So you can see the SQL database over here within that folder, right? And coming back to configuration manager folder, you would be able to see a lot of things over here. Scripts, you can see some scripts over here probably, right? and we don't need to change anything over this. I don't recommend to perform any changes on these folders, right? These folders are automatically managed by SCCM, right? I don't recommend to do any changes unless and until we have some troubleshooting, and we need to do some troubleshooting and delete some old files, and kind of do a troubleshooting. Even though you try to delete some files as part of the troubleshooting, please take a backup of it first, then only delete it, right? So this is pretty important folder for SCCM or configuration manager, so you should not play around this folder, right? Okay, so one other folder for like troubleshooting, right? So this is the log files folder, logs folder. So this is where you can find all the logs related to SCCM, right? And configuration manager, server components, and kind of stuff like that. So if I sort there, you would be able to see two kinds of log files, right? One is yellow hyphen file, and the other one is log file, right? So if you see, there will be two failover log files, right? So this is the latest log file with the with the type is log file, right? And the other one, right, with yellow hyphen file, that is the old file, right? That is the old file. The maximum capacity of a file is 2561 KB, right? That you can see. After that, it will keep a backup of the old file, and then it will start new entries will be available in this particular file, right? The new file with log file type, right? So that is the basic idea of the log file. So you can find all the log files. Whenever I do some kind of troubleshooting and checking, right, normally sort it with date modified information, so that you will come to know like which is the process going on, and which is the logs are very active, and probably you will get some clues from those logs, what is the issue, and what are the activities going on in this, right? Okay, so we will come to this log files later, in details, like each log files, like what are the details of log files, and when do we need to look into the log files, and what is the scenario to look into something kind of cloud user sync log file, right? For example, this one, right? And probably some other log files, DMP uploader log file. What is the scenario for that particular log file, etc., etc., right? We'll look into that. So other important folder is inbox, right? Inbox is significant kind of a folder, right? It was very significant couple of years back when we were using SCCM 2007 and SMS 2003, kind of stuff like that. Everything was handled, all the operations were handled through the file type replication, right? SQL based replication was not in place for that kind of SCCM versions. So SMS 2003, SCCM 2007, every replication within primary servers were handled through file based replication, right? So each of these folders were handling those files, right, and replicating it to the other primary servers, right? But with SCCM 2012 and configuration manager current branch, this has changed significantly. So now if you have multiple primary servers and cache and secondary servers, probably all those replications, most of the replications, not I won't say all, most of the replications are happening through SQL based replication strategy, right? So SQL is helping to replicate all those moving components, not the text files like test file replication. Not it's not I won't say it is not happening, but I will say like it is very less, right? So so that is the significance of inboxes, right? So I have a blog post about inboxes, right? If you want to know what is inbox and what are the like where from where you can get the list of inboxes, etc., etc., you can go into that and you can see. So as you can see, like collection eval inbox is there. That is obviously for collection evaluation scenarios. Earlier we used to have lot of files pending over here when we have a collection evaluation issue, right? Your collections are not getting replicated. In that scenario, we could see lot of issues, lot of files pending over here, right? Lot of small files, like millions of files, right? So those are these inbox folders are kind of very useful when we troubleshoot. Now with SQL backup, the most interesting inbox is not SQL backup, right? SQL based replication. Most interesting inbox is RCM box, right? So this is the box which handles with the SQL based replication files and etc etc, right? In a case, if we want to reinitiate the SQL based replication, you need to put some files and you need to manually initiate it and kind of stuff like that, right? So this is the overview of the inbox. So this is very critical folder for SCCM server. So don't do not delete, do not create any files within this folder if unless and until you have some proper documentation or Microsoft support is with you to create or delete some files as part of the troubleshooting. If you don't know what is inside this file, don't don't try to delete it or don't try to create any files, right? So so that is inboxes and easy play payload, right? So this is also related to the updates and servicing. So we will see that in probably in the future videos, right? Or in the future training sessions. So this is related to updates, like for example, a 1910 to 2002 update, right? You would be able to see the source files over here, and it is very interesting scenarios, right? S- You can learn about it more in the later session, as I mentioned. So so this is another staging folder for updates. Configure, it says CMU, right? Probably it means configuration manager update staging folder, right? So if I go inside this, you would be able to see like a lot of files, like license easy update etc etc. If you ask me what are those files, no, I don't know exactly, right? But these are like default files which is used as part of the updates process, in console update process, right? So you don't want to mess around with all these folders and files, right? So these are some other files like which stores the source code of or source of SCCM client etc etc, right? Okay, so you can see CCM setup and all over there, right? And this is another client folder where you will see another folder, source folder or source files for the client, right? Okay, and bin is another location where you will find all the system related DLL files and lot of other files, right? So this is all core components of DLL files etc for SCCM, right? Bin folder, and these are very important folders, right? Very critical folders for SCCM. Okay, so console console, as you know, like this is the console folder where you will find all these all these log files, interesting log files. If you have some extension, a console extension used, you can go into that log files, and this is an interesting folder if you are familiar with the XML stores and extensions of console etc etc, right? So I'm not going into the details, right? So you can see like your content staging. So all these folders are pretty important, and I think most of these folders are kind of documented, and you can see the documentation in Microsoft Docs as well, right? So my my request is not to play around with all these folders inside configuration manager, Microsoft configuration manager folder, because these are system folders, and we don't SCCM will automatically manage it, right? So these are like vim folder, vim file, right? So these are the things. And for the troubleshooting, there are some interesting exes over here. Probably we will cover this in the future episodes, right? Some of them, you can see support center over here. You can see other interesting folders like console setup folder, CM pivot folder, client tools folder, right? In within the client tools, you can see policy spy. I don't know how many of you use policy spy, etc., right? So those things are very interesting. This tools folder is very interesting, right? And it would be very helpful for the troubleshooting scenarios. Okay, so that is all about the folder structure of SCCM or configuration manager, right? So before going into the what do you call the console and go through the console, let me show you one other interesting piece, right? So in the local users, right, local users and probably groups, right, you would be able to see a lot of different groups which are related to SCCM, right? Some of the groups are not very relevant for the latest SCCM scenarios, but these groups were very I'm sorry, very much relevant when we had site-to-site communication with the file-to-file replication, right? SMS, SCCM 2007, SMS 2003. So I played around with these groups to get the appropriate access to my child primary servers and secondary servers, etc., etc., right? So these are very important. It was very important. Nowadays I don't use these groups, local groups, but normally this is important, right? So this is a folder. Probably it will you will get the access to the console, and if you want to give remote access to the console, etc., etc., right? SCCM SMS admin group. This is important still, but others are not important. As you can see, like it explains what it does is basically, right. It says configuration manager account or machine accounts used for connecting remote management point, right? Management, if you have a remote management point, this is the group it provides access. Probably you don't need, if everything goes well, right, you don't need to touch all these folders, sorry, all these groups. All these things will be automatically managed by configuration manager or SCCM server, right? All the membership, all of these groups, right? Everything will be handled by SCCM. You don't need to touch it, right? Unless and until you have some issue and you are troubleshooting something, right? And you are comparing something. Probably you are comparing your lab environment with the production environment, and in the lab you can see probably something is working, and in production something is not working. Probably it is giving some access denied errors. Then probably it's worth to compare these groups and membership of these groups, right, over here, from these groups, right? So that is the only use case where you will come and check all these scenarios. Otherwise, I don't think there is any need to look into these groups nowadays with the latest versions of configuration manager current branch, right? Okay, So just wanted to show you that, right? And there are these groups are automatically created. We didn't do anything, right? So these groups are created as part of the SCCM current branch or configuration manager current branch installation, right? So don't again. My advice is not to play around or not to delete. Don't remove um, directly any members of this group if there is any, right? That might break some of your functionality, or some something can be go wrong if you remove the members or delete the groups, etc., etc., right? So do not play around. Don't play around with all these SCCM related groups, right? These are automatically managed groups. So I just wanted to give you an overview of these groups, right? So that you will come to know, like, okay, when somebody will say like, oh, okay, go into this group and check, okay, probably you will come to know what is this group. And it has a great details over here in the description itself, right? What is this group used for? So that's very much interesting stuff, right? As I mentioned, this is the provider SMS provider group, right? Members have access to SMS provider, right? So that is SMS admins group, right? So yeah, so this is one more information which is pretty useful, right? And before going anywhere else, I want to show you some other folders, share folders, which got automatically created during the installation process, right? So if you look, I don't know how many of you have problems with this admin dollar, right? Security teams within the organization is not happy with admin dollar share at all, right? They want to disable the admin dollar share. And probably you you might have those kind of discussions with the security team. Probably some of the SCCM functions might not work. The only function I know which might not work is client push, right? If you disable this, client push might not work, right? The admin dollar. Though that is the only one I know, but probably there are some others also which I am not aware. It's better to go through the Microsoft documentation and check whether there is any other functionality that will get blocked or disabled, because uh, probably won't work because we disabled admin dollar access, right? Okay, so others, probably you can see there are some default shares already created, right? So these are not manually created folders, right? So these are not manually created shares. All are created during the SCCM installation process, right? SCCM server installation process, right? So this one is also SCCM related because it shows configuration manager, admin UI, content payload, right? So and this share folder is also part of SCCM. As I mentioned, this is updates, for updates and servicing. Source files will be downloaded and stored over here, right? And you can see content library. You might be aware what is content library. This is for storing the content of your applications, right? So that is the content library. And you can see like other folders like SMS pkg. I told you what is SMS pkg in the previous like 10 minutes before, I feel, right? And dp, this is the default share location for the SCCM site, right? So if you install the SCCM primary site or cast, you would be able to see, and even secondary, right? Probably you would be able to see this particular share, right? And this is the share, very important share. If you want to initiate some kind of a SQL based application, and if you want to do some file replication, file type replication, right? This is the folder used between the site servers, right? For example, if you have a primary server and secondary server, probably some of the text files or some of the configuration files will be transferred through this folder, right? And even some cases, right? So this is very important folder, right? And it's not, advisable to change the default settings, security settings of all these folders, right? If your security team is concerned about security settings of this folder and this share, you have to show them the documentation, and this is the recommended configuration of Microsoft Configuration Manager, right? And you if they need more details, probably it is advisable to get into a call with Microsoft support and give them more understanding, right? So this is these folders and accesses are well documented, and you should not change any of these, right? If SCCM created some folder during the installation process, then you should not supposed to change it unless and until you are doing some troubleshooting or some other kind of activities, right? Like site reset or something like that, right? Okay, site recovery, site reset or something like that, right? Okay, so these are the basic folders which you should be aware of, right? If you say someone will say like, what is SCC SMS underscore DP fold, DP dollar share, right? I don't know. Maybe people are still kind of asking these kind of questions in the interviews also, but I don't know. I don't ask these kind of questions. If I'm not taking any interviews nowadays. But yeah, so so yeah, so let's and if you are very interested to learn this, but then probably there are some documentation on our blogs also, right? Probably you can refer to those to understand inbox folders and all these share folders, right? So these are all integral part of SCCM. So do not, my recommendation is, do not change anything. If these folders are shares are created by SCCM, that can break your entire SCCM, right? SCCM functionality. Okay, but like admin folder is not created by SCCM, and C dollar is not created by SCCM, D dollar is not created by SCCM, right? Everything which relates to configuration manager, that is the best way to understand, right? And these folders, right? So these are the SCCM shares and folders, right? So you don't need to play around with that, right? Okay, so that's it. From a folder perspective, file structure perspective, right? And let me close this installation wizard. And I don't know what is this. Okay, so this is the yeah, we can close this, right? And we can try to launch the console, right, for the first time. Let me pin it to the taskbar, and let me launch it from the taskbar, right? Okay, hopefully this will get connected and we'll see a good console, because I never tested it. This is the first time I'm launching it, so probably I'm hoping, yeah. Okay, so everything is okay, and until now it got connected. So first test is completed, right? So we are able to see the connect to the console, and we are able to launch the console, and the console is able to connect to the database, right? So basically what happens is, when you get an error with the console is not console, you cannot launch the console, and you are not able to kind of connect to the SQL database. So that is where, like, you need to look into the SQL database and check whether the SQL is server is running. Most of the time it's something like SQL server is not reachable. That is why the connection is not getting through, right? You won't be able to launch the console in that time, right? But in this scenario, this is fine for us, and this is the new server. So if you want to look into the console version, you can see the console version from here. This is the place you can look into that, right? Go over here on the left hand side, so top corner, and you can launch about configuration manager to understand the console version and site version, right? I always get confused with site version and full site version inside the console, right? I normally use the full site version inside the console, right, rather than the site version. Okay, the numbers are a bit different, right? You can see that later probably, or I can show it to you now itself. Okay, let me close this. Okay, anyways, I can show it to you later. So yeah, there are some interesting options over here. Like if you want to connect to PowerShell, you can do that from here. And you want to go and get some more documentation and help, you can go ahead and click on this help, and you can see all those things, right? Okay, and connect to any other site, you can do it from here, right? If you have a different primary site or CAS server, and you have a connectivity, you have opened all the firewall ports between all the required firewall ports between those sites, then you would be able to connect, right? Probably you might not be able to connect to the secondary server, right? Okay, this is only applicable for the primary servers and CAS. Okay, so that's it. So apart from that, what I wanted to show you is basically I wanted to go to the administration tab, and let's see what is there, right? So let's see that there's something over here or not. No, because there's nothing over here, updates and servicing, because we have installed the latest baseline version, that is 2002, and there is no other production version available after this, right? If the Microsoft might have released a 2006 version, then the 2006 update would appear over here, right? This is the place where the new updates will appear, right? So remember, it is administration. So let's go through the console, right? Console a bit. Okay, so these are workspaces, right? These things right over here, these are the workspaces, right? So you can see like 5 workspaces now. The community workspace introduced recently with the current branch, probably like 1 year back or something, right? And before that, it was like since 2012 version of SCCM, it was only like 4 workspaces, right? Administration workspace, monitoring workspace, software library, and assets and complaints, right? So these are the 4 workspace. And I forgot the name of this section, right? I have a documentation, a blog post, which explains exactly what are the namings of this section. This, I know this is workspace, I forgot the name of this one, right? And we have different names for detail, play, pane, and those kind of names available for each section of the console. This is called the ribbon of the console, right? So you can go through that, and you will find out more details about it, right? If you want to learn more about the console, and what are the functions of the console, and how it is called, etc., etc., right? Okay, so let's go through the administration console, right? And the administration, under updates and servicing, nothing is there. Probably it will come up later, right? When we have the latest version of SCCM, right? Or if you have any kind of updates or hot fixes available for 2002 version of current branch, right? Then it will appear here. Hot fixes also appear here, right? Along with the updates. Okay, so the other configuration part is other console node here is, these all are called nodes, right? This is hierarchy configuration node, where you can see like what are the things available, what are the configurations available over here, right? I'm not going to do any configurations now, right? So we will do it together. But we will first understand what are the things coming out of box, right? We have not done any configuration. So if you just install a SCCM server, what are the things it will automatically come up, right? So that is what I'm trying to show you today. Okay, so this over here you can see like discovery methods, boundary groups. We will see what are these things, right? We will explain. I will explain what are these things, right? Boundary groups, boundaries, right, in the later sessions, right? And whenever we configure something, we will explain and we will go through in details, right? What does it what does that mean? Discovery methods, what does that mean, right? What do you mean by active directory user discovery? What do you mean by active directory system discovery, right? We will all see that. Okay, so everything is disabled out of box. This is discovery, right? Everything is disabled out of box. The only thing is enabled is heartbeat discovery. This is enabled by default. Okay, so you should not disable it later part. That could create lot of issues, right? You can disable whatever you want. If you want to play around with system discovery or something else, you can do that. But obviously if you change this in production environment, probably you will you will hit with P2 issues or something like that. Probably your application deployment or something else might not work as expected, right? But just wanted to give you a hint. This is automatically enabled heartbeat discovery, right? So heartbeat discovery is for basically to get the heartbeat of the client, right? Whether the client is alive or not, right? So this is old method to get the heartbeat of the client. Nowadays we have the latest fast channel method to get the client's online status, offline status, etc. Right? But this is the old method which SCCM or SMS 2003 or SMS 2.0 used to get the client is able to contact SCCM server, or client is online, or client is available, or something like that, right? So this, don't disable this, right? If you go inside this, you would be able to see like it is 1 week, it is set to 1 week, and you would be able to see those details, right? Okay. And boundaries, there won't be any boundaries. You need to create the boundaries, right? So now we have, so this is an example, right, which we are going to show now. What I'm going to do is basically give you an overview, right? What we are trying to do here. Let's create something over here. Okay, so you you build a new office, right? You have a new office, right? And you have, as let's assume you have a new office, right? And new office, not view office, new office. Okay, new office, and you assign to a task that I need to build entire SCCM, right? SCCM infrastructure for this new office, right? I have lot of clients, right? I have lot of clients like this sitting somewhere in the office, right? In the same office or remote offices, right? So this is the scenario which we are going to tackle, right? So this is client, this is probably new office data center, you can say DC, right? This is the client clients, right? Okay, so now what we did is basically we didn't, this is not significant, right? New data center is not significant, right? Okay, so let's assume in our scenario this is not significant because we built our servers in Azure, right? So what I'm going to do is basically I'm going to say office 1, right? Office 1, office 2, phase 2, right? Office 2. Okay, and probably we will assume that we will have some clients over here also in the office 2 also, right? Let's assume. Okay, we have some clients over here also. Okay, so what we did is basically we built something in the cloud, right? This is the cloud. Probably I'm very bad at drawing, so bear with me. Okay. this is this is Azure, right? Where we build our servers, right? Um, where we build our SCCM server, AD server, right? Everything we build, right? And and we are okay. I think this is not going to work very well because it is going to get complicated, right? So let's give it another try, right? So let's assume we build our servers in on-prem data center, right? So this is data center, right? Let's assume like that for this example, right? Let's understand the SCCM first, and then let's go ahead with the cloud version of it, right? So let's say this is DC server, and this is SCCM server. So you've been asked to build a SCCM server. You build an SCCM server, right? And you have a connectivity. You joined the SCCM servers to the domain controller or Active Directory. Domain joined. It's domain joined. Now you can log in with the domain username and password into the SCCM server, and then you installed all those components, right? Small components inside SCCM. Okay, that's the wrong thing. Like SQL, you installed SQL, like you installed everything SCCM, you installed other components which are required, right? And the SCCM is ready. Now we need to do something like SCCM is not aware of anything now. SCCM is sitting alone here, right? It doesn't know about the clients, how many clients you have in your environment, right? And how many users are there in your environment, right? It doesn't know anything, right? It is just an application sitting. Now you need to discover something, right? You need to discover the users, right? How many users are there, right? Users over there. And you need to discover the computers, right? How many devices are available in your office, right? You need to understand all those things, right? How to understand this, how what is the best way to understand the users and computers? Because we are assuming that all these users are part of this Active Directory, right? All these part of the Active Directory, all these users are part of Active Directory, right? So that's the wrong one. So all these part users and computers are part of Active Directory. Okay. So you need to understand, SCCM needs to understand users and Active Directory. SCCM needs to discover that. So you need to contact, the SCCM needs to contact Active Directory and get all the details about users and computers. That is the best and easiest way to SCCM to get data, right? So that is the discovery process which we are talking about now. So SCCM, what SCCM will do, SCCM will contact Active Directory and collect all those details, right? And it will store in SCCM's SQL database, right? You will have a SQL database over here. It will store the Active Directory user details. It will store the Active Directory computer details, and everything will be stored here, right? The clients will directly in touch with Active Directory, and then Active Directory will provide the provide the information which is needed. So that is what we call discovery, right? So that is what called discovery. Okay. So if you know what, now you know what is discovery, right? So discovery, if I can go back to this discovery methods. So these are the discovery methods. Now we are trying to understand what are our clients, right? And who are our users, right? So these are the methods to understand that and discover that, right? So our aim is basically our aim is basically to manage these devices through SCCM, right? So SCCM is basically a device management solution, right? We are planning to manage these devices, but how we can manage these devices if you are new, and SCCM doesn't know about all those devices. So that is why we need to do a discovery from the Active Directory, right? So that is what we are doing. That is a normal step which we need to do as part of the initial configuration process, right? I will come back to this in details when we configure all these things, right? So just to give you understanding of discovery methods, right? And boundaries, right? And boundaries, right? Boundaries is basically the thing which you need to enable and configure, right? At the moment SCCM is not aware which is its boundary, right? The what is the boundary of SCCM, and what is the boundary of clients, right? Boundary means probably you can assume this is the boundary. This let me let me pull out another one. This is the boundary, right? You can say like you have a remote office too, and you have a boundary, secured boundary like this, right? So you will have a separate IP address for this boundary, right? You will have a separate VLAN inside this, right? So that VLAN will be there, right? In office we will have VLAN 1, we will have VLAN 2, right? In all the offices we will have all these different VLANs, right? So those are our SCCM boundaries. So you need to define a boundary for SCCM, right? So that it can manage the clients in the boundary, right? Boundary is this box probably, right? You can assume this as a blue box, right? So if you want to manage all these clients, then yes, probably you need to define a boundary, right? For example, if you have a separate data center over here, right? Or separate data center over here, right? The DC2, this is your DC2, right? And you have some special devices over here, right? Special devices over here, and you don't want SCCM to manage these VLANs, right? Or these clients, right? So then what we will do is, this is red, right? Let's keep it as red. So we won't add this particular VLAN details or AD site details, right? Or any boundary, any related boundary. We don't add this boundary to SCCM configuration. So SCCM basically won't manage these devices, right? So these devices or these servers won't get any SCCM client or any SCCM policies. So this will be kind of managed from a different perspective, right? Probably they don't want to be managed or something like that, right? So to manage something through SCCM, you need to have those devices and inside a boundary which is configured in SCCM. Okay. So for example, if you have a boundary range something like 192.168.0.2, right? Or 0.0.0/24 or something like that, right? Then you need to have these type of boundaries configured in SCCM console over here to manage these clients, right? If you have not configured boundaries, and if your clients are not in the boundaries or boundary groups, right? Then SCCM won't be able to deploy any application, any patches, any configuration policies to these clients, right? So discovery is needed, and then boundaries are needed, right? Boundaries are just a logical boundaries of IP addresses or something. I would always recommend to go with IP address range rather than using AD site and all, right, for the boundaries. Okay. So let's go back to our SCCM console. These are the boundaries, right? So you need to define boundaries, you need to create boundaries, and you need to provide the specifications type of the boundary, right? IP range, I said IP range, right? We will go through all these in details, but I just wanted to give you a overview of the boundaries, etc., etc., right? So that is boundaries. Once you create boundaries, there you need to create boundary groups, right? So boundaries might not work alone, if unless and until you add a boundary, a particular boundary, for example this one, right, this blue one, to a boundary group within SCM, right? Let me change that. Okay, boundary group. This boundary should be part of a boundary group within SCM, right? There could be different boundaries inside a boundary groups, right? Different, when I say different, there could be more than one boundaries inside a boundary group, right? So unless and until you add boundaries to boundary groups, SCCM won't be able to manage those clients, right? So you might have understanding of very high level understanding of boundaries and boundary groups by now. Okay, so but the point of this session is basically to understand what is coming out of box, right? So this is I have not created any boundaries, right? I have not created any boundary groups now, right? I have not enabled discoveries, but this is coming automatically now. The default site boundary group for my site code is automatically created. So this is out of box configuration, right? So if I go to properties, you would be able to see like the details over there, references, and all the default settings are there, right? So we need to do something with these boundary default site boundary groups also in the future to manage the clients appropriately if you have a scenario like that, right? But we will come to that. But normally when we have a boundary, when we you are not supposed to do use these boundaries. I always advise to create a different boundary groups and add your boundaries to these boundary groups, right? New boundary groups, right? For example, I will create an office one boundary group, and I will manage only the clients in the office one with boundary groups, right? And VLAN one will be part of a one boundary, and VLAN 2 will be boundary 2, right? And boundary 1 and boundary 2 will be a part of boundary group. Okay, that is called office 1 or office 2 boundary group, right? So you can think like that, right? Okay, so Exchange server, I never use this. I don't know how to use this. Probably this is not useful for from my perspective, right? So I'm not going to cover that, right? I don't think anybody uses it nowadays. So other one is database replication, right? Database replication is, as I mentioned, a SQL based replication. Most of this text based replication is moved away in the latest versions of SCCM. For example, if you want to communicate, the SCCM probably is very kind of a chatty application, right? And it always communicates, sends data to the secondary servers. Primary server sends data to the secondary servers, and secondary server sends data to primary servers. And even within the primary servers, if you have a cache, then primary servers also communicate each other along with the cache, right? So all those communications, regular communications, happening through the SQL based replication, database replication, right? So this is the configuration for that. In the scenario, we have a primary server and we don't have any scenario like database replication. So that is why you are not able to see anything, right? So this is for that. If you have primary servers, you would be able to see that, and you would be able to configure it, right? Okay. By default, you don't need to configure it anything. So there is no configuration required, right? It is automatically configured, right? This is again a kind of a scenario when you want to troubleshoot something about SQL based replication, then only you need to go into this, right? And this is the other file based replication. If you have other primary servers, cache, or secondary servers, this is another way of replicating the things between the SCCM servers, right? So if you have for example, if you have different SCCM servers, we have a, for example, if you have a SCCM server over here in DC2, right? And if you want to replicate, oh, come on, change it. If you want to, if you want to replicate something between these two SCCM servers, right? You can do it in two ways, right? One is SQL way, SQL, and the other one is file based, right? So these are the two things which I just showed you, right? So SQL one is SQL based replication, and this one is file based replication. So this is for the communications between the site servers, right? Not between MPs and primary servers, DPs and primary servers. This is only for the site servers, something like secondary servers, primary servers, and CAS, right? If you want to communicate and if you want to send data, replicate data, this is the configuration used for that. Okay, so that is file based replication. And Active Directory Forest, this is automatically kind of created out of box, right? Whenever we build a configuration manager site, it will automatically create this along with the domain which the server is joined, right? Okay, so that is automatically configured, and you can see the publishing, Active Directory publishing succeeded, etc., etc., right? We will come to that. Publishing, we have created system management container for publishing, and we have extended the schema in the Active Directory. So these are all automatically happened, right? These things are automatically happened, right? So this is out of box settings which you can see now, right? So that was one of the out of box settings. Now you can see cloud services, right? These are the pretty new stuff. Co-management configuration, cloud services node handles all the cloud related stuff: co-management, Azure services, Azure Active Directory, tenant and user discovery, Azure Active Directory user discovery, and those kind of stuff, right? Cloud DP, cloud management gateway, CMG, etc., right? At the moment, if you look at, there's nothing is automatically configured. There's nothing out of box over here, right? Okay, excuse me. So this is other node, site configuration node, where you will find all the primary sites and secondary sites and CAS servers. If you have, right, if you have a secondary server, it will show up over here. If you have a primary server, it will show up here. If you have a CAS, it will show up here, right? Within a hierarchy, SCCM hierarchy. So over here, lot of things are already kind of configured, and all the details are kind of available over here, right? This is maintenance tasks and everything over here. You can see the nodes over here down, right? So these are the things automatically configured, and we don't need to kind of do anything over here at the moment. We have to do some configurations, but that we will come in later stages, right? So that is site servers. These are the site servers, right? So some if lot of servers are there in under the sites, these servers are called site servers. Okay, so these are the site servers, and the servers inside this node is basically site system servers, right? Like if you have a DP, remote MP, right? MP servers and SUP servers, those are the site system servers. So I explained you like what is the difference between site servers and site system servers, right? In the previous videos. Okay, so this is the default configuration. These are the default the site systems configured as part of the installation. We remember like we configuring connection point, database server is all by default coming, right? Component server is automatically coming, right? And site system, SMS provider also we configured, right? These two things we configured during the installation phase, right? But all the other things are automatically coming as part of the installation, right? So Yeah, there should be lot of things coming in the later stages, like distribution point, management point over here. Now you won't be able to see anything because we have not done any configuration, right? SUP and all the things, it will come over here, right? So those are site system servers or components, right? Okay. Now client settings. So client settings, the default client settings will come over here by default. So that is why I don't know, I think I mentioned about default client settings yesterday also, right? It is not recommended to change anything unless and until specifically, like if you don't have that particular configuration in the custom client settings options, right? So these are the default client settings which is available, right? So it is better to keep this as it is, because this is by default deployed to all the collection, all the devices, right, within your organization. Okay, so if you want to change something, probably it's better to create a custom device collection or custom client user settings, right, to cater those changes, right? Okay. So security, by default, admin users. So you can see, like I installed this server, right? So my ID is already added as full admin, right? So I am the only one will have full admin access on this particular infrastructure, SCCM infrastructure, right? Security roles, by default, there will be like 15 roles, as you can see over here. 15 roles are here, right? So you can copy and create new roles if you want, new roles if you want, right? Security scopes, there are only two default security scopes, out of box security scopes. One is all and the other one is default. We will come to we will go into the details of all this in the later sessions or videos, right? Accounts is same, right? Certificate issuing certificate, these are the three default certificates coming by default into the SCCM. So yeah, console connections. So only one is available now, right? That is my only one user is available, right? Distribution points. We don't have any distribution points. We don't have any groups, so there's nothing over there. Source. This is migration topic. I'm not going to cover the migration topic over here. So by default, there is no configuration over here. There's no source hierarchy, etc. over here, right? So that is default configuration. And management insights, there's no client and there's nothing over here. So probably management sides, side insights, these are the default things, right? Okay, and inside, so that is done from a administration standpoint. So let's go to the assets and complaints, right? Assets and complaints is a workplace like where you can get the collections and all, right? You can see the collections over here, right? You can see like devices. If you click on the devices, only device you can see is the server itself, right? Because as I mentioned over here, we have not discovered any of the client devices. We have not done any AD discovery, right? We have not done any Active Directory discovery. If you run the Active Directory discovery, all the device entries, records from Active Directory will appear here. Okay, so at the moment it is only the default one, that is the server itself, and the client, we have not installed the client on the server. And these are the default device templates available for some other purposes like OSD and provisioning, etc., right? User, the default user collections are here, right? All user groups, all users and groups, right? So these are the default collections available, right? User collections, there are two things, right? I mentioned yesterday also, right? You cannot mix user collections with device collections, etc. In previous versions of SCCM, it was possible. Now it's not possible, right? So device collections, as you can see, like these are the default devices available. As I mentioned yesterday, from the collection ID, you would be able to see the site code is SMS, right? The collection ID starts with SMS. So that means these are the default collections, right? So those are the default collections, and user state migration, nothing is there. Intelligence, so nothing is configured there. These are automatically kind of coming as part of the installation process, right? Okay. And software metering, I don't use this normally, so we have not configured anything related to software metering, right? Everything over here, like complaint settings, configuration items is blank, configuration baseline is blank, so nothing out of box coming over there, right? So these are the things by default, it's blank, nothing is there, right? So I'm going to skip all these things, right? And same for all these policies, right? BitLocker policies and all those things, right? So nothing is configured out of box, right? So we can skip to the software library part, and in software library you can see like what are the things coming by default, right? In applications, there's nothing much, right? We have to create applications, but we have seen, you remember, we have seen 4 packages as part of that folder inspection we have done, right? So these are the 2 packages, right? So where is another 2 packages? So those are hidden packages, you won't be able to see that. Those are ghost packages, probably, I can say, right? Though you won't be able to see that in the console, but you would be able to see that in the log files and other scenarios, right? But the the package details are not available in the console, right? But here it is a change for these default packages coming out of box, right? That is basically the package ID. If you look at the package ID, you can see the site code over here, right? The site code is ht1 ht1, so that is our site code, right? So and unlike the collection ID, uh, the default collection ID starts with SMS, right? But default package ID starts with our own site code, not with SMS default site code, right? Okay. So those are the out of box package IDs coming. Application requests, global conditions, there's nothing. Application virtualization, there's nothing over there, right? Side loading keys, nothing over there. I don't know, it got stuck. hmm okay, I don't know what is happening over there. Okay, it's doing something with the global conditions. So there are a lot of, yeah, default global conditions are available. Probably it's getting doing something in the background. Okay. Okay, so we are kind of stuck there, I think. If you have any questions while we wait for this,
Hello, 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 sir.
go ahead, go ahead.
Sir, if we have like we have work from home users. Hello.
Go ahead, go ahead. Don't stop.
Yeah, so we'll plan to install the SCCM as of now, and for the work from home users, like if you want to configure this boundary groups, like if you're this boundary groups and you're talking about the boundaries, right? So we have 3 different locations as of now, and 3 different locations have 3 different IPs. So we configure the boundary groups. In the boundary groups, we define that IPs. How is it done, sir?
Yeah, that's correct. So you might have VLAN 1 or VLAN 2, or that will be one of your one of your IP range, right?
For,
And you
sir, for example, we have 192, 168 in one building, 172 and 172.20 is one building. So we define both the IPs in same boundary group, or how is it, sir?
Yeah, you need to create two boundaries, right? Two
Right,
boundaries first over here, first one here, right?
right,
So the second one here, and those after creating those two boundaries, you need to create a boundary group, right? And
right.
after creating boundary group, add those two boundaries to that one boundary group. So that will help you.
Okay. And for one more thing, sir, if we have like we have two, three locations here, and if we are coming with some other location in Pune, for example, then we will install the server also there, sir, or how is it, sir?
So it depends how many clients you have and what are the features you are going to use, right? Normally, if those devices are in the same domain, right,
Right,
then you just need to install a distribution point or Pixie or something like that, or management point if you have a lot of clients, right? So those are like site system servers, as I mentioned, right? You don't
right,
need to install the SCCM server itself over there, so you can manage those things from a different what do you call the same from the same server, okay, with the remote distribution point, etc. So this is the same scenario, right? For example, if you see, like I'm saying my this is my Pune office, right?
right, sir.
Okay, and I have a Mumbai office here, right? Or
Right,
Bangalore office, okay, let's say
right,
Bangalore, okay.
right,
And I'm creating a CCM server over here, and I have clients in Pune office, and I wanted to manage those, right? So
right, sir.
probably what I will do is I will install a new DP over here, right? The distribution point,
Okay, sir.
SCCM DP over here, right? And the
Right,
DP configuration we can do it from Bangalore itself, from SCCM server itself, right?
okay, right, sir.
So after that, your clients in Pune, right, Pune office will
Right,
will contact this particular DP to get the content, right? And
right,
probably if you can install management point, then for the policies also, the clients in Pune office will contact this DP and MP.
right.
So that would be the best choice for you as per your requirement.
So DP and MP can be installed on the Pune office.
Yeah, if you have a server over there, I would recommend to install it. It can be any file server also, so that should not be a problem.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir.
No
And
worries.
one more thing, sir, can it run with i7 32 GB because we use physical servers?
i7, yeah, that should be fine. I think I don't think any CPU limitations or CPU configuration limitation. If the server is able to take the load, then it should be fine.
Okay, sir. So, because for primary site also, will that be sufficient, sir, or do we have to increase the RAM?
It depends on the client count, right? How many clients you have. Like if you are talking about 1 lakh client or 100K client, and you
Okay.
have only like 10 gigabytes of RAM or 16 gigabytes of RAM in the primary server, that might not going to work, right?
No,
So so
for 2000 users, sir, 2000 plus users,
yeah,
i7 32 will be sufficient, sir.
it depends, right? Are you planning to install the SQL also on the same box, or are you planning to install the SQL on a different box?
Same box, sir.
Okay, 32. I think for 2000 clients, it's probably fine, right?
Okay, sir.
I don't see any issues with that, I think. But
Okay.
if you see some issues, probably you can increase it also, right? So you might have additional slots available in your hardware, and probably you can put in more RAM afterwards if you see some performance issues. So probably you can start with that.
Okay. So, can I ask you regarding the license also now, sir, or is it fine at the end I
Yeah,
can?
yeah, no problem. You can go ahead. Ask.
Sir, like we have ML, sir, management license, client ML,
Mm-hmm.
of 1500,
Okay.
1500 as of now.
Uh-huh.
But we are planning to use actually, since we are not able to manage work from home desktops or the laptops, as we do not have a SCCM as of now.
Mm-hmm.
So what we are doing is we are planning to install SCCM as of now,
Mm-hmm.
and we will use the IBCM also, internet-based client machine.
Mm-hmm.
And we will one time we will use 600 machines are there for work from home without VPN connectivity, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So what we are doing is, can we we'll create a VPN connectivity for all the 600, and we can use those licenses of 1500. Can we manage 600 separately, and and other machines are 1400 machines are having a VPN connectivity.
So from a licensing perspective, there is no difference, right? In both the scenarios. So licensing requirements are same for both the scenarios, right?
Correct.
Because it doesn't count whether the client is coming through VPN or directly, right?
Correct,
So
sir. My question is, can we manage 600 instead of going for VPN connectivity? Can we use only for 600 users? Can we use this system? I mean, SCCM as such, like, I mean, because we are not able to monitor those work from home users or the laptops or the desktops. Only we will implement for the older 600 users. Is it fine, sir? Or
so you are asking about something like you already have a clients SCCM clients installed on those machines
no, 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 sir.
devices.
No, no, no. Because at least we can able to manage those devices without SCCM. Instead, we want to monitor only the work from home. Is it possible, or do we want to procure more licenses for 2000? That's what my question is, sir.
No, I didn't get your question at all. Sorry.
Uh,
So,
Sir, may I
yeah,
bargain
yeah, sure,
if you give permission?
sure, sure. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Deepak.
so now SCCM license is only site-based and not the client-based, okay? I have already pinged the license-related details into the chat history. You can refer that, please.
Which one, sir?
In the same chat history, in the same session chat section, if you go, I mentioned about everything about licensing. You can
Where?
click on the very last chat. This thing, yeah, somebody liked it just
Oh,
now.
now SSM license is only site based, not
Uh,
client based. Okay.
yes, sir.
So
And
in the sense,
I've
in
given you
the
the. Yeah, go ahead.
that means we don't have to have a client licenses as of now.
All those details are there in that, sir. You can refer that,
Okay,
please.
sir. Okay,
Thank you.
sir.
Yeah, sir, go ahead. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Deepak, for that. Okay,
You're welcome.
so let's go back to our where we were. So we were looking into the applications, right? And we got stuck in the where is it? Global conditions, right? So I'm not going to click on that again. So probably we will see that later, right? What I did is basically I closed my console forcefully and relaunched it. So this is the default thing coming under these all these configurations, right? Application configuration policies. So there's nothing over there, and even software updates, right? By default, there is nothing over there here. If you're not speaking, can you please go on mute? Thank you. Okay. So deployment packages. So there's nothing over there because we need to configure the WSUS and SUP and all software update point to get this enabled, right? So out of box, there's nothing over here, right? And same thing applies for the third party patching, right? In SCCM, through SCCM, if you want to go through the third party patching, probably this is the option to do that, right? So nothing out of box over here, right? The other one is OSD part now, right? OSD drivers, OS drivers are not there, driver packages are not there, right? OS images are not there, nothing is there. Boot images, probably there will be boot images, right? So yeah, default boot images are already created as out of box, right? As you can see, the image ID is our site code, starts with our site code, right? And boot images are there. Task sequences, I don't think there will be any task sequences, right? Windows 10 services servicing, there won't be anything over here, right? So so these are the default configurations available within SCCM console under system, sorry, software library, workspace. Okay, so edge configurations, nothing configured over there. We just need to configure all those things. If you want to use scripts, there's nothing over there. And the other part is monitoring, right? Monitoring is the other part, which you can see, like, this is all about the monitoring the infrastructure and the clients and deployments, etc., etc., right? Okay, and reporting, etc., etc., right? Always, like, if you are new to a customer and if you want to understand their hierarchy, their SCCM infrastructure, this is the best way to understand it, right? If you are not able to, if you didn't Ah, let me try that again. If you didn't get any any architecture documentation from the client, so this is the site hierarchy. Is a place you can get all the details, like where, do you have different primary servers, you have a cache or not, you have secondary servers or not, all those details, right? You will get over here. So this is the pictorial representation of your architecture, right? SCCM architecture, I would say. Okay, and reports, queries are there. By default, there will be a lot of queries, like 18 queries, right? By default, it's coming over here, right? You can see all these queries. If you go in, and you can get the details over here, right? So remember, all these queries comes with the site, the different query ID comes with this different site code. That is the default site code, the SMS, right? All our custom queries will be with a different site code, right? So it is easy to identify the default queries and custom created queries, right? So reporting, we have not configured anything, we have not installed the reporting services. Otherwise, like, yeah, so there will be some default reports available within SCCM when you configure the reporting point and all, right? We have not configured anything over there, right? So site hierarchy, we have already seen. Alerts, yeah, I missed alerts, right? Alerts, you can see, like, active alerts and all those things you can see over here. Now we don't have any alerts over here, so never triggered. That is the thing you can see, right? There are some things are critical, some things are warning, right? You can go into the details and you can check what are those if you want, but I just wanted to show you this is the basic out of box configuration available, right? Subscriptions, you can subscribe to alerts and reports also, SSRS reports also, that will give you a kind of a email email notification if you want, right? Okay, so that is one thing. And the most important stuff, right, for from a day to day activity perspective, comes under here, right? Site system, site status, right? And there are very important status icons over here, and status okay, you would be able to see warnings, errors over here, right? And you would be able to see, like, I have only one site system, right? So it's my site's component server is also kind of a site system, right? So that is the detail, that are the details available over, these are the details available over here, right? So if you go ahead and right click on the site system details, site system status details, right? You would be able to see, like, the messages, right? What are the messages available for this site system for a day, right? So this is one of the important steps which you need to look into when you have a troubleshooting scenario, right? You would be able to see, like, what is going on with the site systems, and you can use the filter rules and find status message rules. This is very helpful sometimes to understand what is the issue if you have a troubleshooting scenario, right? So you would be able to see which component which component is giving error or uh, something like that, right? Okay, another option over here is reset counts. You can reset counts, and that will help you to remove some of the warnings, errors, right? Because if it's old, that will create your that will make your reports not reflecting the best situation, right? So sometimes I have seen people use reset to get a better reports, right? So that is another thing which you can do. Over here you can see like the other components, other options are disabled because we have not installed SCCM client on these site servers, right? So that is why that is disabled, and it doesn't have any data about that, right? The only option enabled is configuration manager, service manager. I don't know where, like, many of you might not aware of this, but this is fine, kind of very useful, right? To in troubleshooting scenarios, you would be able to see like components over here, right? What are the components, what are the main components and threads within SCCM server, right? And that will give you much better understanding of a SCCM application itself, right? You have seen an service called SMS exec, SMS exec service, while we run while we had gone through the services, right? And that is the main service for SCCM, right? All the SCCM functionalities. So most of these threads or components are part of that SMS exec service, right? So if you click on components over here, you would be able to see like threads, right? These are the components of SMS executive service, right? So for example, let me take a better example, right? Client health, right? There's a component called client health, and that is part of SMS exec, right? And there will be components like distribution point. Probably you won't be able to see it because we have not configured it, but for example, if you want to take another example, right? Replication manager, that is also part of SMS exec service. So SMS exec service is the main service for SCCM, right? And there are a lot of components inside that service, right? There are a lot of threads inside that service. So like everything, most of the services, most of the components are coming under SMS exec service. Only few are different services. As you can see, we have seen VSS writer service, right? This is very important for the backup scenarios, right? And SQL backup, this is different component, different service. This is not part of SMS exec, right? And site component manager backup, we have a SMS executive service itself, right? That is a service, and I told you this is basically the service for the updates, right? If you want to update from the old version of SCCM, like 1902 to 2002, this is the service, right, for that, right? So Intune service, that is also not part of SMS exec, right? So if you want to know, for example, what is the current status of the SMS exec service, right? So let's do a query, and during the query, it will try to check the status of the service, and it will show you it as running, right? So it says, okay, the SMS exec is running, right? And you can see a green button over here, right? So that means that is running, right? So you can stop there, you can stop these services, right? That that might break your SCCM, right? So be very careful if you stop the SMS exec service. then on you are, once you stop the service, you won't be able to, like, SCCM won't be able to manage your clients and send applications, etc., right? Distribution won't happen, etc., 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 right? So there's, let me do this thing, query for all the components and see like which are the components by default running and which are not running, right? So it says it is checking, querying the all the components inside our SCCM primary server, and it will give us a detailed report or detailed analysis, and it will say like, okay, these are the services running, these are the threads which are not running, right? So for example, SMS site backup, it says, oh, it's not running. Yeah, that we know, right? We have already seen that in the services, right? That a site backup runs only when the site backup task is running, right? So that is one part of it, and all the components will come back and say like, okay, I'm running, right? So for example, AI KB manager, right? So that is running, and alert notification is running, it says, right? So all these will come back. It depends how much, like, what is the load of your SCCM server, how much, what is the performance of your SCCM server to get all these details, right? Okay, so this is very interesting troubleshooting scenario, right? And it is going to take some time. Probably we will come back to this in a minute, right? But you can see like it is all coming up and saying like, oh, I'm running, don't worry about me. Okay, so yeah. Site systems and components, you can see like the components over here, as you can see over there also 66 components are there, right? Yeah, I don't know how people will start asking this also, maybe in interviews. I have not seen, I never ask these questions like how many components are there in SCCM, right? Because probably this is the first time I'm noticing it for the current branch, right? Probably I never noticed this number, right? Probably 66 is the count, right? If you want to trouble somebody in the interview, you can ask. Nobody might have any clue, probably, and it will change, right? When you have a DP or MP, right? It might change, right? So this is not a good question to ask. Mm. Conflicting records, you can see, and in the components, right? You can see the same things, right? And you can start the service manager, and you will get back to the same screen, right? And you can see the messages, right? Alerts. This is very useful for the troubleshooting purpose, right? Okay. And if you go to the properties, you would be able to see the error messages, how many error messages are there, how many are critical, those things, right? Very interesting stuff. I have a detailed blog post about this, right? How to reset it, how to check the health, all those things, right? If you are interested, probably you can go through that, right? Status message queries are other thing, right? And there are 41 status message queries available by default, right? Query ID, if check the query ID, it is all starts with SMS, right? Okay, so excuse me. Deployments, phase deployments, these are the basic monitoring options available if you have a deployment, for example, Office 365 Pro Plus deployment or any patch deployment. All those things will come over here, and you would be able to see the status of that deployment, right? Okay, so nothing is by default available, right? Over here, client operations, nothing is there. Status, script status, you can see over here, nothing, no scripts now, and we don't have any clients, so client activity probably it will be nil. All right, so these are the kind of out of box settings available, right? Database replication, details you can see over here if you have a cache and primary servers, but I don't think anybody wants to use cache servers anymore, right? Um, so these are the default settings, as I mentioned. Okay, okay, you can see site server status over here if you want, right? And you can get all these details. Right click, and you can say show reinstall if you have some trouble with the installation of the upgrade, right, of your secondary servers. Probably you can do that. You can use an option called recovery also for the secondary servers, right? And this is probably for the installation of the updates, right, for on the primary server, right, 1910 to 20.04.2. You can use this kind of options, right? Site server status, and you can come here and you can check the monitoring and check what is happening with the installation and retry it, right? This is the this is the place where we can monitor the in in console updates, right? Same scenario, 1910 to 20.04.2 update of SCCM, you can monitor over here. Okay, the security things, endpoint protection related stuff over here, right? Co-management, compliance policies, co-management, Surface devices, right? Surface devices, specific node for Surface devices, right? I don't know. Okay. um, Package conversion status, I don't know how many of you use this package, converting packages from sorry yeah, from packages to the application, right? So there are a lot of activity in the previously, like in 2012 and all, right? So a lot of people converted their packages from here to applications, right? So application model is pretty robust, I would say. So I don't recommend to use packages, right, even though these are the default packages available in SCCM, but Microsoft's recommendation is to use applications, which has a lot of advantages, right? It is very robust. So we have seen monitoring, and let's go back to our thing right over here. Right, I just wanted to show you these are the default components available when you install SCCM server. Right, we have, remember, we have not enabled or installed MP or MP and distribution point and management point. So if you add up those, probably you will have more components over here. And the other interesting point which I wanted to show you is basically here we have a logging option, right? So you will see which is the log file for this particular component, right? For example, this is, let me close that, and let me open up something related to client health, right? So client health, this is the log file which you want to look into related to client health. That is chmgr.log, right? And you can see like what is the maximum size of the log file. I have shown you log file size that is 2 MB to 2056 or something, right, KB. And then it will create a new file called log file, right? And the old file will be named as lo hyphen something, right? Lo hyphen log or something, right? So this is the setting, right? If you want to keep a different log file size, I don't recommend to do this, because it is only useful when you have a troubleshooting scenario, right? And you want to have troubleshooting done for a couple of hours, and you want to analyze the log, then only increase the log size. Otherwise it is going to eat up your disk space, and it is going to create problems, right, while running the backup and all, right? So I don't recommend to do this, right? So change this unless and until you have a specific scenario to do it, right? Okay, so that is it from the component side. And I think last bit is this is right. This is the last workspace. default configuration coming into the console with the latest versions of Intune. No, sorry, latest versions of Configuration Manager. So here you can see the documentation of Microsoft, and a lot of details are available from console itself, right? Okay, I think that is it from my side for today. I will open up for the questions, and we will see all these configurations. We'll start from the from configuring the discovery options. Oops, somebody scared me. Okay, anyways, I was giving you a heads up about the next week classes, right? Training or knowledge sharing, right? I don't like to keep this as a training or something, right? Probably we are not following any Microsoft training methods or something like that. So this is knowledge sharing, probably. Okay, so next week we will see discovery methods, and we will configure it and boundaries, and we will install clients, and we will see like what are the changes it is going to happen in the console, and we will analyze the log files. So I will open up for the questions now.
Anup, I have one question. Last week I set up a lab for SCCM. What issue I am facing, like for SCCM servers, that our SCCM is installed. If I try to push any application or client installation on the spot, that bits service is automatically getting stopped, and no data is transferring from SCCM to like client. And even if I try to start that service again after some time, it's again automatically getting stopped. So what can be the reason for that?
That's very tricky question. Probably I might not have answer because as you mentioned, you already find out a reason for that SCM functionality not to work, right? Bits is the reason over there, right? So you need to troubleshoot on
Yes, correct.
bits perspective, right? You need to understand why bits is failing, right? Probably you might need to analyze some log files, and there are some commands to analyze the bits bits admin commands. I forgot the exact details of those commands. Those commands are always helpful to understand what is happening with the bits, and why the service is getting stopped again and again. So we need to understand that, then only like we can proceed from there.
Yes, even I try to repair that service from the control panel. The troubleshooting option is there, but again it's a stopping.
Yeah, you might
So
need
I
to
was
you may need to look into the event logs, right? And you might need to run that. I don't know whether you already run the bits admin commands. There are a couple of command line tools available for bits troubleshooting. So you might need to run those and check the event logs. That is the way to troubleshoot bits, I feel.
okay. Sure, I'll do that.
Okay, and if you have any questions,
Thanks.
please feel free to use the forum, right? forum.howtomanagedevices.com. So we are there to help you out, to answer your questions over there.
Sure, sure, I'll do that.
Okay,
Thank you.
no
Uh,
worries. Any other questions?
Yeah, sir. Wherever you mentioned during the session that there is a blog post available for all those, I have collected those blogs, and I have pinged in the chat history so that everyone can refer those. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Deepak, for
Yeah,
that.
yeah, you're welcome, sir.
Hi, Anup. Just a quick question about the you were going through the under the admin cloud services. You mentioned something about the co-management side of things.
Hmm.
So, looking at it, the prerequisite, are we gonna cover the? Does it need the co-management Active Directory Azure AD sync to be configured at the same time?
That's a good question, right? So yeah, co-management co-management, there are a lot of prerequisites, and there are in some of the prerequisites are there, and it clearly states like if you have a on-prem active directory, then you should have a Azure AD connect to sync your on-prem active directory with the cloud, right? So that is the best kind of best practice kind of a scenario. And you might need to sync all your user IDs, and probably some device IDs also into the Azure Active Directory. But I don't think it's a hard requirement for all the scenarios. But yeah, I think co-management, it's, yeah, you're talking about the co-management, right? So I think co-management, that requirement is there, yes. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for that. As part of this knowledge sharing, at some point, we're going to cover this to connect core management to Intune.
Yeah, I will try to cover that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Much
No worries.
appreciated.
Yeah. Sure.
Anup, Sujin here.
Yes, Ajin.
So I have a question here about co-management. So I read that for co-management, CMG is not mandatory, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So I read that from Intune we can create an application and we can deploy, and we can manage the SSM client. But if the CMG is not there, then how we can manage the clients through
we are
co-management?
as we are assuming that your clients will be able to connect to your on-prem management point or distribution point somehow without CMG. That is why we are saying like co-management doesn't have a requirement to have CMG. So if, for example, if your client is sitting in your office premises, right, or
Mhm.
if your client is connecting through VPN, if you have opened those channels, then Intune can help to deploy SCCM client with that connectivity directly through your management point and distribution point rather than using CMG.
Okay, you're talking about internet-based client management.
No, so I'm talking about VPN, right?
Oh,
If you have VPN connectivity, right, probably that might also help, right?
okay, 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 good. Okay. Thanks, that.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
worries.
hi Anup. I'm trying to set up the lab, and I have set up few things which we seen till now, and apart from that, I have set up MPNDB as well. Apart from this, so I could not see SysDB in S Management Studio. So what would be the thing I need to check for that? So I don't know. Like I have configured the SQL Manager as we did in this training.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not getting the SysDB there. I'm getting that CM underscore PR1, the configuration manager database,
Mm-hmm.
but just DB I'm not getting. So I'm not sure where I did the mistake. So how
No,
to?
even for me, SysDB is not there, right? See,
Yeah, yeah, I can. Yeah, got it. So
yeah.
I
So
have.
we need to configure that WSUS and SUP, right? Software update point. Have you configured that? Then only it will come.
Yeah, I did that, but not sure. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe when you're doing it, I can see if what's the
Yeah.
mistake I did. Yeah, I
Sure.
just configured WSS and SUP as well, but not sure what mistake I did. Maybe yeah, while you're doing, we can check it. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't think you did any mistake. So yeah, I think that should be the part of the configuration which we are going to see next week probably. Yeah,
Sure. Thank you.
no worries. Any other questions for today? Otherwise, I'm going to stop this for today. Last 1 minute.
Anup, one question.
Yep, go ahead.
Like for scenario when the VMs are in any of the clouds like AWS or Azure, do
Hmm.
you have any special recommendations apart from um,
Firewall ports needs to be open.
yeah
All
apart
the
from
firewall ports needs to be open. and Pixie, those things might not work.
Okay.
But apart from that, everything should work.
Okay. Great. And for SQL, high availability, it
Mhm.
could be set up in the cloud,
So you
like
mean to say, you mean to sorry, you mean to say SQL high availability will have a problem over there, or because this is IaaS setup, right? So all the servers in this VLAN or virtual network which we configured is managed by ourselves,
right.
right? So we can do whatever we want if that is supported by the OS or the cloud provider. So I don't know whether there is any restriction in the high availability perspective from a SQL perspective in that scenario.
Okay. So it shouldn't be different than what is in the on-prem.
Yeah, but I can't think of any scenarios like which can create complications, because in Azure I think high availability and all those things are already kind of there, right? So for example, if you want, I don't know whether clustering is supported in Azure or not. If you, because high availability in SQL is related to cluster also, right? We need to enable the cluster service in the server, right? You need to, if you want to use high availability in the SQL and SQL availability group and all, right? The prerequisite is to have a cluster service, right? So I don't know exactly whether Azure VMs will have that option or not. I am assuming that it will have, but I'm not sure, I never tested it.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
No worries. Yeah.
Thanks.
Hi, Ed.
Okay, any questions, any other questions?
Yes, just a quick question regarding the lab setup in Azure. Have you managed to actually install, I'm not sure, not this example, but the other infrastructure that you have in the SCCM platform in Azure, WDS and basically Pixie? Can you mimic, like, if you deploy Windows 10 machine in Azure and then you have, like, the SCCM site server, if you install WDS and Pixie, would that work in that environment?
I have not figured out that yet. because
I'm
because
thinking.
I don't know how the Windows 10 VM, right, in Azure will get a Pixie, and I have not seen any configurations like that, and I'm not there yet. Yeah.
All right. Okay, good, good, good stuff. Hopefully, you will find some kind of a hack so that we can cover Pixium for Windows 10 to talk to the SCCM so we can practice like a task sequence. Thank you.
I don't think it's very easy.
I know it's a bit challenge, yeah,
Yeah.
for learning
Yeah.
Azure at the same time.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. Thanks for your time, and this is very beneficial for everything. Like, I was trying to create the lab in Azure and playing with the SCCM server, and I came across one of the issue, like the region was not allowing me to allocate more than 4 CPU because of the these free subscription that they give you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was looking workaround, and sometimes you can, playing with the VNet peering and reading about all of that, uh, which is good.
Good to know. Good to know. Yeah.
Yeah, in case of any issue, someone I come across, if you're trying to create the lab in Azure, and if you come across limitation, if you're not able to allocate more than 4 CPU, what you could do is create the VM in another region, and then you can basically you can do VNet to VNet peering, and then basically you can have like the servers talk to the domain controller that way.
Yeah, that's good tip. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to end this for today.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you
Thank
all. Thank
you.
you all